Hi everyone, I'm Phil Valentine. Been in recovery since December of 1987. So by my calculations, this December in a few months, in a few months. Yeah. I'll have 38 years of recovery. So also am now retired from the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery. It's been over 9 months since I left and starting to embrace my retirement. Now I'm doing a lot of angling. Some of you know I had 6 A's, and angling is at the top, and artist, and uh, not doing a lot of the other things yet. Oh, athlete. Like this morning I did my 30 minutes of yoga, try to keep this body stretched out enough so that I can go fishing.
Wow.
Um, Today, I'm sitting in Warwick, Rhode Island, looking out. There's water on the water, and I can launch my kayak from my house. Life is very good for me. And I've been thinking a lot lately about trust. And I think a few weeks ago, I delivered the ethical considerations for Rye Cares, where my wife Sandy is the executive director. So I got to do an in-person training, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And we talked about trust there and ethics. But I've also been watching Blind Spot on Netflix. Anybody else watch Blind Spot? Know what that is? About the woman who shows up with all these tattoos, and the FBI figures it out for all these sinister plots that they thwart at the last minute. It's pretty mind-blowing. But they always talk about, well, how can I ever trust you again? Or I don't trust you. Or it comes up every episode at least 5 times about trusting one another and the FBI and CIA and the spy game. Can you really trust anyone in that world anyway? So that's why this topic comes up. And like I've said in many times that I like to bring up topics I most need to learn about. So let's start off. Some of you can say who you are, where you're sitting. I'm always curious of where you're sitting, and tell me a story about trust, something that comes to mind. Who'd like to go first? You're also eager to participate, I can see. Willing to put their. Oh, by the way, did you know Zoom has this little thing where you can scroll down and there's this little thing like you can raise your hand, a virtual hand. You can do that. Did you know that? Thank you, Leslie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie. I am a person in long-term recovery. My sobriety date is the 18th of September 2020, and I'm in upstate New York. I'm friends with George Feaster. He's the one who got me this link.
Mhm.
But I have watched the Appalachian Trail video now 4 or 5 times. And one of the things that I used to say, I said it the first time I saw it, which was said while still in tears, because by the end of the video, I was just all broken up about it. And I looked around the room, and there was one or two others who were also close to crying or actively crying, like I was. And there was a few folks that were on their phone, and some of them were actually they'd watched it, but they didn't get it. And I said to my trainer, all of those people who are filled with emotion, those are your coaches. Those are the people. They're listening, they're paying attention, and they get it.
Mhm.
As far as trust goes,
Mhm.
um, I had a job at an RCOC up here, and I trusted and overstepped my bounds by loving and being loving towards my coworkers. And I was very successful as a coach because I took everybody at face value. They walked in the door, I greeted them. I was the greeter at first. I worked in the front, but then I became a recovery coach. And I had many, many recoveries, so it wasn't based on my my abilities, but I did get fired. And the thing that hurt the most after I got fired was not one person that I worked with, and I'd been working there for a year. Um, some of whom I spent the entire, like every day in their office. Not one person reached out. So
Mhm.
I have trouble with trust, but I think it's
Mhm.
absolutely essential. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Leslie. Welcome. Nicole. Nicole, I see your hand raised, but you're still muted. I heard you before. Hello, Nicole.
Can you
Hello.
hear me okay?
Now we can.
Okay. Um, so my sobriety date is September 5th, 2013. I have been a recovery coach since 2016. Um, I have been a facilitator since 2020 and have absolutely loved being a part of the CCAR family, and I've embraced not only doing a webinar, but doing some of the RCP interviews. And I just want to say I appreciate everything, Phil, that you've done to create this C-card training, not just to get coaches, trained, but to support us in all the things that we have to go through, and just making us better, for our clients. I am currently just switched jobs, and I'm about last week, and I'm working with Women's Specialty Services, and along with regular coaching. But I just absolutely love it, and I think for me, trust has two parts. One, learning how to trust myself. And having some confidence in what I do for others. And of course, trusting the process of um, working for agencies and coaching clients and trusting my coworkers. Um, One of my character defects and maybe areas of that needed growth is my control issues, and that right there has I've discovered has a lot more to do with my lack of trust. That the control issues I have is about not trusting coworkers, not trusting the process, not trusting agencies, and then that ends up making me want to do everything myself, and just it's hard to be able to depend on other people. The other thing about trust that I've learned is that there's different layers, right? Like I can trust that somebody will meet me for coffee when they say they will. And then I can trust my sponsor with my story. And then I can trust other people with my kids. I can, you know, trust somebody with my emotions, my feelings, right? And so, I stopped generalizing trust as like I have to trust somebody 100% if I trust them. And I think that there's different layers of trust. I trust my boss, but I don't trust my boss with my whole life. And being able to really reflect on my own experiences with trust and helping clients learn those boundaries. They come in and they have trust issues. We all do. And helping them understand that there's layers to trust. And one of them is just trusting myself and my abilities. So I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about trust.
Thank you. Anybody else? Name, where you're sitting, and a story about trust. Dr. B.
Good morning. I'm sitting in Tonawanda, New York. I'm a recovery coach. I've been in recovery for 31 years this August. And yes, God is good. I took a leadership training. I don't know if anybody ever heard about Inosaki. It is a very intense leadership training. I went to it in Detroit, and one of the things we had to do as leaders was learn to trust one another. So we had to pick someone we did not know, stand in the middle of the floor, and you know how you stand behind somebody and
The
just fall
trust
back and
them.
trust them to to
Yeah.
catch you. That was a very good exercise, but it really bonded all of us leaders together, especially the ones who didn't know each other. It created a kind of bond, and we took that and we ran with it. And it's just important in leadership that you do trust people, especially those that you're going to be working with. So that was very good for me. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good story. Thank you, Dr. B. Anybody else? Come on, jump in,
Hi,
participate.
hi everyone. My name's
Stephanie.
Steph. Yeah, hi everyone. My name's Stephanie Watterson. I've been coaching since 2019. I've been on this journey since then. I'm in long-term recovery for almost 10 years next month, and I love what I do. I just started the RC. I just became an RCPF this past year,
Wow.
and yeah, so I try to come on when I can. I've got my hand in a couple things right now. I'm trying to finish up my not CARC, my addiction counseling degree, and I'm just really busy, which is good. But a story about trust. I think trust can be really hard for a lot of people that are trying to get into recovery. And I didn't grow up in my family. It was really hard to trust people. And so for me, I try to foster a safe space for people that are trying to get into recovery. And first, I learned in this field, relationship building first, recovery second. And so for me, it's having a safe place for, like I said, with the people that the recoveries, clients, patients, whatever you'd like to call it. And I think that's really important to foster that and for the trust. So that's just my tidbit.
Thank you, Stephanie. Hi, Sean.
Hi, guys and gals. Well, I'm Sean Parch. I'm with the Recovery Community Network here in St. Cloud, Minnesota. And so yesterday I sat in a talk with a gentleman named Dr. Young, and not Carl Young, but he was a psychologist. This guy was sharp. And the first question he asked is it possible for you to be non-judgmental? And so right away I said, "Yep, yes, you can." And he looked at me. He said, "No, you can't."
Hmm.
And he said, "What was your first?" So this guy was like 6 foot something, wearing diamonds and jewelry and Jordans and so I remember my first thought when I walked in, well, that guy's a drug dealer. You know what I mean? Like it's just what I thought. It doesn't. I don't know the guy. And then when I realized that he was the keynote speaker and he's got a PhD in psychology, I thought, "Ooh, well, I missed the mark on that one."
Hmm.
And so instantly my level of trust based on past trauma was, I don't know about this guy. And it reminds me, Phil, of the story that I heard when I was at the C-Card thing out in Connecticut about you and a friend that had gone around the whole day and how he was treated
Hmm.
because of his color.
Hmm.
And so for me, I've learned that trust is it's uh it's a core belief. And I spent a lot of years in the Minnesota Department of Airbnb. And so it took me 3 years from leaving that facility to sit somewhere without my back to the wall.
Hmm.
And so for me, when I work with peers, I know that if this man or woman is just coming out of the Department of Corrections, I know that they trust no one. Mostly. I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I just from personal experience. So I've learned that, and I have to keep my personal bias in check. How
Hmm.
somebody appears has nothing to do with who they are. And so when that guy said that yesterday, I thought, well, boy, and I told him, I said, this is my first. He goes, I get it all the time. So I've learned that trust is, I have to learn to trust people. Just because I spent 30 years in that wrong life does not make it fair for me to project that onto any other human being. So, no.
Thanks, Sean. I think you could be dressed like that, a doctor, a keynote speaker, and a drug dealer all at the same time. I think it's possible. You never know. Anyway, Pete,
Hi, Phil. Hi,
hi.
everyone. Pete Villanueva. I am sitting here in Vancouver, Washington.
Ooh.
I don't know if we're sharing all that other stuff about sobriety, but I'll just share my sobriety date is July 18th, 2001. I've been facilitating CCAR training since January of this year. So it's been an honor and a pleasure. Trust. I really liked what Nicole said that there's layers to trust. For me, now I'm going to share this specifically for me in general. I don't really trust people. I still try to sit with my back to the wall, not because of paranoia, but out of habit and because I like observing people and seeing my environment. Um, so for me, what I trust is the things that I've learned about people, my observations. It's not necessarily the exterior, but my intuition about the vibe that they're giving to me because I've sat, next to people that, would maybe in general look like you couldn't trust them, but they're not giving bad vibes. And then people that look quote unquote normal, where I get just really bad vibes. And so I kind of trust that. And what vibes means to me is like I kind of I'm an energy kind of
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
I try to connect with other people's energy as well. So it's like a habit of mind. So trust for me is earned. um, I mean, like maybe all of us here, I've had my trust broken, but there's very few people that I consider that can implicitly trust, where I can just be me completely, say what I need to say, and trust that it stays in that right place. But in general, I trust my own intuition. So thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Hi, Katrina.
Good morning, Phil. It's so good to see you. Hi, Michael.
Likewise.
Um, my name is Katrina, and I am a person in recovery. 2012, November 1st of 2012. I am sitting in Albany, New York this morning, and trust. So it has over the years changed, and I think more so over this past year, trust has been more of like this act of a spiritual practice for me. And I say that because I am walking my daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, through this time in her life, and trying to help her navigate, right? So, like, as a parent, I see like the influences of the world just like tugging at her. And then, some of the upbringing that she has had, like tugging her back. And so I've had to put my trust in the God of my understanding that He is going to protect and guide and navigate her like through this life. And so what that means is like I have to trust. And that really, really is a spiritual act of me
Hmm.
today because I can trust other people, to keep their word, and I can be a person that is trusted today. But I really have to hone in spiritually when I am trusting that God is going to navigate my daughter in the direction that He has designed for her life.
Hmm.
And so when I'm able to trust, I notice this worry leaves, fear leaves. Um, but when it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I see her little like Life 360 45 minutes away from home, I'm like, okay, that trust goes back and forth. So it's more of a spiritual act, I guess, today for
Yeah, I
me.
like that. Thank you, Katrina.
Thank you.
Reagan?
Hi, I'm Regan. First time.
Hi, Regan.
Hi. It's so nice to be here. I've been to the webinars, the past ones, and I've gotten so much out of them. And since I'm here live, I guess that means I have to participate, right?
Hmm.
Um, so my sobriety date is November 6th of 2011. I am just completing my coaching hours to then do my interview and hopefully then become certified. And I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. Um, and I couldn't think of an example of trust, so that's why I was kind of quiet.
Uh-huh.
But then it dawned on me that something that I am battling with now is trusting myself to make good choices with food.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's not something I love to talk about. I have been in that program for some time, but I decided I don't really want to do that because I want to eat whatever I want to eat. Um, but but the cold hard truth is that you know, anything I do, it feels like I'm going against my own self, is really painful, and I have been struggling with that and not trusting that I can um, make the choices that I know I want to make in that area. So thanks for letting me
Uh-huh.
share, and thanks for creating this safe space.
Yeah, good example. Thank you. I recently, 2 months, 2 month, May 10th, I gave up coffee and caffeine, which for like, I don't know what number of time that was for me, but with heart palpitations and racing and those went away. So I think it was a good choice. I can't do anything in moderation, you know. And then in the last 3 weeks or four, maybe it's been a month now, but I've given up all like the processed sugar, cookies, pies, cakes, ice cream. So, and I feel like I just can't do it at 65. I just can't do it the way I used to do it. So I feel so much better just overall health-wise. Health-wise, this
Thank
is
you.
the,
That's inspiring.
well, health-wise, this is the best I've felt in 4+ years. So I'm grateful today, really grateful. Is it Steve? The S is for Steve?
Yes, it is.
Got it. I remembered. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil, for
Hmm.
facilitating this. This is
Sure.
one wonderful topic. I'm Steve
Hmm.
Kromberg. I live in Marblehead, Massachusetts, work in Beverly Hospital, along with Stephanie, who has been real inspirational and my mentor
You
here.
go,
So,
Stephanie.
I wanted to give her a big shout out. But to me, trust is something that it starts with me. If I can't trust myself, and there's a lot of uncomfort comfortability that comes along with that. For example, the other day, Stephanie and I were working together, and a woman was um, in the hospital here and needed to talk to somebody. And I felt I had a bit of an internal bias of going to talk to an older woman. I didn't, it's not as comfortable for me to do that. It's easier for me to work with a male. Just that's my internal bias sometimes. And I grew up with seven sisters that I still love dearly, very, very close family. But it's funny because Stephanie said, are you okay to do this? And I'm like, you know, damn, I am. I'm okay. I can trust myself. Go out and have a conversation with her. And as she said, you build the relationship first, and it all dovetails off of that. So, that's just a small example of
Hmm.
me having to try to trust myself,
Hmm.
even though it can be extremely uncomfortable at times. But you do that, you build confidence, and it's just a building block. So
Gotcha. Thank you,
thank you.
Steve. Uh, Peacemaker.
I wasn't gonna say a story, but I got a good story. I was about 11 years old, and my uncle he came over from Puerto Rico. He got into the hair club for men, right?
Your
So
story is so
no,
funny.
I would go with him to these appointments. And one day I go with him to the appointment, and on our way back home, it was freezing, right? And I remember there was a dog that was loose on my block that everybody was scared of. His name was Tiger. Tiger was loose, and he was standing in front of us. And my uncle goes, "Trust me, don't run. He won't chase you if he don't run." And I go, "Okay." I trusted him. And guess what he did? He ran. And I stood there with this dog in front of me. I'm like, what the heck do I do? I remember running on top of this car and just jumping on top of the car, and somebody yelled out, Tiger! And Tiger left. And when I caught up to my uncle, I was like, why'd you tell me not to run if you told, and then you tell me to trust you? I never trusted him again.
How about that? That's a good one. I think you told me the tiger story before. I like that. How's my girl Shireen? You're not going to get away. I want to hear from you.
Wait. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Hi, everybody. I'm Shireen Fielder. I am a person in recovery. I am sitting in the Waterbury Center right now, just coming back from vacation. I was honored to be able to take a vacation. Um, you had said something earlier about trust. I have a hard time with trust with my daughter. Because the moment I give in and I think everything is good after the apologies, and I think we're on the right track, she comes left with something else. So it's like I don't know how to take her. Like now we're in a rut. We came off a flight at Flint, Michigan. We was at the airport. Everybody got stranded. So
Yeah.
she got the information the same time as me from the airline people, and she walks away and she blows up on me. Like I like when I think that I'm safe with her or I can trust her, it's always something that comes back to bite me. No matter how good I am or how good I do, it's just not enough. So I came to the reality of I don't care. As long as I know I'm doing right and acting according, there's nothing that can turn my spirits down or away because that can also lead to depression.
Yeah.
And I don't have that right now in my life. I keep everything positive now around me. And if nobody's in my circle that I can trust, I have to let them go. I still love them, but I gotta let them go.
Gotcha. Good story. Thank you.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Barry, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing okay. Thanks for that topic. It definitely makes me think. I think a lot of times, as far as trust, is I have to develop trust. I don't think that it was sort of like recovery, man. I think I didn't really buy into recovery for a long time because I didn't trusted anybody. And the environment I was in, rightfully so. You know what I mean? It was an environment that a lot of anybody trusts anybody.
Hmm.
But I've developed over time, man. Like sometimes I have to be like completely powerless before I trust someone. You know what I mean? Like it's not. I have no choice. And through that process, I've learned to give people the benefit of the doubt. Most of the time, I'm a pretty trusting person, unless like if you prove me otherwise. I remember reading something one time. God said, "Trust me and love people."
Yeah.
So when I can trust Him, then I won't be so suspicious of people. You know what I mean? I can because I know He's not gonna let anything happen to me. So I've been I've been dealing with the process. My mom's in the hospital. She just had surgery yesterday, and I've had to trust that she's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, man, when you really, really don't know. But like removing, the opposite of trust is doubt, and trying to get rid of a lot of doubt. And I've had experience with that, as far as like being in recovery and dealing with people and learning not to doubt people, right when I meet them. I always think that most people got good intentions. They don't always do good things, but they pretty much have good intentions. So that makes me a more of a trusting person. I could be wrong with it, but like I said, I think at the end of the day, I'll be okay. So thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that, Barry. I wrote it down. The opposite of trust is doubt. So, um, I might question that later. I know you're surprised. Jamie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Davidson. I work with Rise Recovery Center in Des Moines, Iowa. So I'm here in the Midwest. And I'm a recovery coach here. I wear a lot of different hats, but recovery coach is my favorite so far. Thinking of trust, I think about being, 16 years old and lying to my mom about, going to a sleepover and went to party with friends instead, as many 16-year-olds do, as my own 16-year-old does now, which is karma completely. But I remember when she found out, she had to come pick me up, and she had said to me, trust is lost in buckets, but it's earned in drops. And I remember thinking like, oh, like this is way worse than you telling me you're disappointed in me, right? You told me that you just lost your trust in me in a huge way, and it's gonna take me a while to earn it back. So she's a great mom, but that one still sticks with me.
Well, I wrote that one down too, so we'll ponder that for a while too. Um, I've come to the conclusion over the years that there are two types of people, and I think I've written this somewhere or said it many times. One type is a person who trusts everyone until they give them a reason not to. And the other one is, I think of a couple of you mentioned this, we trust no one until they give us a reason to. I happen to, as a kid, be the first one. I trusted everyone and everything, everyone. My mother said I was naive. I think she was the other way around. But I would just had this, she called me naive. I had a night that I just didn't understand the world. If I did, I wouldn't trust people or things the way I do. Um, I still trust people until they give me a reason not to. And someone was talking about the energy of a person, right? So I think that was Pete, that if I sit down and I get this weird vibe, I'm okay. You've just given me a reason not to trust you, whatever that may be, or a behavior. We've talked a lot about trust. You guys have used the word trust. And I don't really care if you Google it or not, but I'd be curious in how do you define that word, trust? How do you define it? What is it?
Well, according to the Google search I did when we were talking about it,
All right, Steve.
it's a firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something.
So, a belief, a firm belief.
Firm belief.
All right. Love that. Anybody else think about it any differently? When you think about if you were going to explain trust to a 6-year-old, how would you explain it?
I would go further. I would say showing up for someone, accountability, consistency. Those are the three words that when you said, what does it mean to you? And I feel that wasn't always modeled even to me. And so it really means a lot to me living the life that I lead today, to be present, also to be present for people in my life and to the people I serve. I think that's a big deal when you mentioned that trust. When I'm accountable to someone, what does that look like?
Yeah. No, so what does that look like? I'm asking you, Stephanie, what does that look like when you're accountable to someone?
Well, also not lying, showing,
Oh,
telling the truth.
okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Leslie.
Yeah, I want to say that in my practice, I try to love each person as evenly as I know how to do. And a lot of times I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I know that it's dangerous. And yet I do it anyway because I want to prove that it's possible to have that kind of courage. So I get my heart stabbed sometimes. And a lot of the trusting issues that I have are based on betrayal. And I showed you something very vulnerable about myself, and you used it against me.
Hmm.
And that's a hard one to get over.
It is. I agree. Michael and I were talking a little bit about that earlier. Regan.
Hi. I'm thinking that trust is a verb. I realize it's also a noun, but for me it's more useful in the verb sense, because it's an action that I have to take, and the action is believing that things are as they should be and that people are good and that they have good intentions. Thanks.
Okay. Katrina. Why can't I hear you?
Can you
Oh,
hear me?
now I can.
Okay, so I kind of want to go off of what Regan just said, as well as touch base with what you had said, Phil, because I also am a person that just gives out trust. And I had to really take a look at why that was. And what I found to be true about myself is that I value connection over protection. And so I think when we talk about like trust and like what it means to us, everybody's is going to be so different because of that upbringing, right? So for me, I value that human connection over valuing protection because I never had to protect myself as a child. My father was a drill sergeant. He protected us. So I never had to really worry about that protection. And I think it can be completely opposite for people that had different upbringing. But what I did learn is I had to learn how to balance that with boundaries because I kept finding myself getting hurt over and over because I just freely trusted. Um, but what I also learned as well is that I have this gift of like seeing the good in people. So I'll go right to the good in people and I'll overlook like there'll be raised like red flags,
Mhm.
raising them in my face and I'll push them by, to see the good in them.
Wow, you got me thinking a lot about that connection versus protection. Did you just come up with that?
Yeah, so well, I had not just now, but I had done so much work in this in therapy.
Ah, gotcha.
And yeah, and she like helped me to connect the dots. She did a lot of those great questions that you do allow me to self-discover.
Well, I think we were talking one time, it had to do with boundaries in the RCA, and I did three or four in this topic. We explored it. It was like you're in a brand new land and you establish a city, right? Or a town. And do you put walls up around the town?
Mm,
And that kind of was like the connection versus protection. You
wow.
know, are you building a fortress or are you building an open like um community?
Wow.
Anyway, that's what I thought about. I don't know. It
Yeah.
might not be relevant to anything, but
No,
Pete.
it is. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I were to define what trust is, I would, I mean, again, it goes back to those layers, right? And I also like what Katrina shared, that it's going to be different for everybody. But for me, it's when it comes to people, it's about reliability and consistency, right? What do I know about them? What have they shown me? Um, but that's why I went back to saying the way I express what I trust in is my own experience, my own intuition. And I'll give a short story if I can, because like my wife and I, we work together doing this a park host um, activity, right? It's something we support the park by going around and cleaning it up, and in exchange we get to live on the park. Well, when we started to learn about each other, because we never worked together, um, people would always kind of reach out to me and try to say something to me, right? And she was, why don't you stop and talk with them? And I told her, in my world, that happens a lot. So I can read like right away whether someone is really trying to, have a problem and really connect with me, or they're just, I don't know why people just say stuff to me and I'll just keep moving, right? And she thought that was the oddest thing because she would always stop and want to address them. And then it would be to me nonsense. It just, I don't know why people do that to me. So I guess I told her that's how I approach things. I just kind of try to read people right away. So that's how kind of I approach trust in general. Like,
Okay.
yeah.
Barry.
Yeah, I really think trust is usually based off evidence, right? Um, and I think it can be simple, except when it comes to emotional trust. I think emotional wild card is like a wild card. Because if you think about it, when you drive every day, you trust that the person at the stoplight gonna stop when the light changes. Rarely do we question that. You know what I mean? Or when you sit in a chair, you trust that it's gonna hold you. Rarely do you question that. Only when I question trust when it's emotional. When I'm trying to protect my emotional feelings, I may be a little more, you know, geared towards questioning the trust. But in the simplest forms, like we practice trust every day in everything we do. We put a key in the door, we expect it to open. You know what I mean? We trust that it's gonna open. You know, just simple stuff. So trust at its simplest form, we all practice trust whether we admit it or not. You know, just going on day-to-day life.
I've heard the similar stories for like the word faith. You know, you're gonna have faith that your chair's not gonna break. You're gonna have faith that someone's not gonna run through the, but I think faith and trust are interchangeable in those
Well,
examples.
I think trust
Yeah.
is the next level from faith. I think you have faith and then you develop trust after you have faith.
Oh, okay. Jamie says to a 6-year-old, this trust is when oh. So a lot of you, when you talk about trust, you're talking about emotional trust, the four quadrants, they're emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. So most of the when trust seems from our conversation falling in the emotional realm, right? Of that where do we trust with people? Is that correct? Would you say that's correct? All right. So given that consideration, which question am I going to ask next? So I'm going back and forth between these two. I think I'll start with the more provocative one. Is it necessary for a recovery to trust a recovery coach? I see yeses and I see nos. So somebody kind of answer that question and jump in with your thoughts. Steve, were you going to start?
Yeah, I can comment on it. I think that it really comes down to individuals, but I do, you know, to answer your question, I do think there's got to be some trust or a connection involved there, but not absolute trust because there could be doubts in everybody's mind.
Mhm,
So I would say that it can build, you know, over time.
mhm.
And if you can do that incrementally, um, then you can actually get to trust. So,
Okay.
but it really depends on, you know, how the relationship is forming.
Sean.
That I mean, he basically said exactly what I was feeling, and like it's
Okay.
a lot of peers we work with are going to come in and they're not trusting. Either it's the system as a whole, or but to me that's the benefit of having lived experience. And I'm an old school AA guy, so even though a sponsee might really not feel like the whole world's against them, they don't know you, they don't know, maybe you're part of the man, however you want to put it, but I think, like the gentleman just said, the longer you work with somebody and the more that they realize that I'm not here for financial gain, I'm not here to exploit you. I am literally just here to try to help you get through this. And if you're genuine, I think that relationship develops and they start to realize that you're someone they can trust.
Okay. Leslie.
Yeah, at the last place that I worked, I mentioned earlier I was the reception person in the beginning, because we had a double in roles. But I was the one who greeted people coming in the door and respecting the fact that what it took just to come into the door.
Mhm.
And I had more than one occasion when I talked to them until, like 60 seconds, and then they would look around nervously, and I got it. And I was like, come on back. And we would go back to my office. And this happened more than once. I closed the door and they started to cry. Trust is absolutely necessary, but it doesn't take long if you treat somebody um, like a human being.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Thank you. Stephanie.
You mentioned the four components of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I believe there is three components with this part as far as mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I like how Sean mentioned the AA part. When a person is that broken, they have to have some level of surrender, willingness to trust someone that I can't do this anymore. They don't have to be fully trusting, like, oh, okay, yes, but to literally ask someone else, like, I need help. I need help to learn how to live my life differently. And so they're going to give my life into somebody else's hands. There has to be, like I said, a level of trust there. And I believe in my own life, I've asked a lot of help over the years. And then I've learned, like, you know what, I'm going to ask somebody else. I need help in this area. I need help in this area. So there, like I said, there has to be some level of trust. And because the way I'm doing it is not working, and I do need some direction. And so there's some components, the willingness, surrender, taking action, which is a blessing, I believe, and spiritual. I believe that's spiritual. I'm a God person, and I love when the key turns. There's that moment where they're realizing I can't do this anymore. It's awesome to witness.
Okay. Thank you. Regan.
Hi, I'm going to be devil's advocate and say no,
Hmm.
um, because I think maybe we're all operating on the assumption um, that trust is necessary when maybe it's not for the recovery. Maybe they're happy to come in and just talk and do the work, and trust isn't even on their radar at all, right? It's a possibility. I don't know. Um, so that's what I'm thinking about.
Thank you. So is it a tactic? I've heard in many trainings about this idea of building trust, and I think it was you mentioned here, between the recovery and the recovery coach. Is that a tactic of yours to build trust? If so, how? If not, why not?
Are you
You think
asking me or
about
the group?
anybody.
Okay.
Mine isn't actually. Mine is to tell them the truth. And usually I get told off sometimes. And I tell them the truth. And if they're ready to get the help or they hear the message and they're that ready, that there's something that clicks with somebody. I don't know what it is, to be quite honest. It's just something happens in that moment.
Mhm.
Well, I
Okay.
don't know.
All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll share real quick, Phil.
Yeah.
It's not a tactic of mine,
Yeah.
because, like I mentioned earlier, it's about reliability and consistency. Because I know me, I won't necessarily trust anyone right away. I know what, kind of like what, who's it, Regan? Yeah, that shared. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, because they don't even know me. Now,
Hmm.
if I start to give them resources and I start to connect them with the things that they need to build their life and to go on, now will they still trust me? I don't know. To me, it's about what are they doing? What are they achieving? They don't have to trust me, but I have to trust that I'm going to give them exactly what they need. Again, back to me, I trust more about what I'm doing and giving, and then let that reciprocate.
Okay. Anybody else?
I,
What do you
I
think?
just want to say this one last thing. If I go in there with an agenda, I'm doing a disservice. And I like what Pete just said. I have to be true to myself in my role as a recovery coach. And I just wanted to go off of what Pete said, like staying true to me and what my role is. I love that. I can't go in there with something else. Like, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Does
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
Um, Let me ask the question a different way. Do you care if the recovery trusts you? Katrina.
I do care. So I that last question, I was thinking it's not like a tactic, but I didn't really know where to go with that. But I do care that a recovery gets to a place where that they can trust me. Because in that it helps me to help them self-discover what that is that they need. Right. So it helps me build recovery capital with individuals. It helps them like self-directed into this recovery journey. And so I do believe that it's a vital piece of coaching. But I've never thought of, going into a session saying, or with the tactic of like, trust has to be the thing. Because I go back to what we had talked about in the beginning, which now it's going to help me in my coaching because I think like, okay, does this person value connection over protection? So I'll be thinking of all these things now. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Do you care if the recovery trusts you? Somebody else answer the question. Why or why not? Dr. B.
I care. I care because of where I come from and from being a user back in the day and everything. And I didn't have a lot of people that trusted me, even when I got clean. Even now today, I have my family members that say, they still don't trust me. They just don't believe, after 30, going on 31 years. But I care because I taught at ECMC Trauma Hospital for 15 years in the drug and detox unit, and my purpose there was the self discovery, and I ran a self discovery class twice a week for an hour, and it didn't happen right away, but over time, just allowing them to share their different stories and me to share a little bit about myself, being a little bit transparent, they begin to trust me and I begin to trust them, and we created a relationship, like someone said earlier, and we were able to build on that. And so I believe, for me, I believe it's necessary for not only for me, for them to trust me, but for me to trust them.
Okay. You brought me back to like you said, I had like decades in recovery and my mother still didn't trust me. But on her deathbed, it would be a few more days before she died, but she just looked at me and she said, "You made lemonade," which means, that was her way of saying she was proud of me, and brought me back to that. So she finally came to some resolution to my whole story and all of that. Yeah, thank you for that. I didn't know why that came up now. Holy cow. Anyway, Jamie. Wow.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that like trust isn't the goal for me, right? Because most of the people that come in, like they're struggling to trust themselves.
Hmm.
So my goal is for it's about them. I like if they trust me, that's great. I want them to know that they can, but it's not my priority. I try and put it back on their recovery and how they feel about themselves and what they need to do. And typically through that, like they know they can trust me, but that's not the goal. Like there's no tactic there for me in that. So I think I just want them to be better leaving than they are coming in either way.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well said. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on, Barry. You're like fuming over there. I can see smoke coming out of your head now, your ears. You're fuming.
Yeah, I do care that recoveries trust me. I think that I try to develop credibility with them by being straightforward and honest.
Right?
I think that when I'm straightforward and honest, then it don't have to be a tactic. I think if it's being a tactic, then I'll end up doing too much trying to make them trust me. So I think that I just develop credibility and be consistent.
Yeah. So
consistent.
I didn't quite hear you. You said you don't care if they trust
No,
you.
I said I do.
Oh, you do care.
I do
Okay.
care. I
All
do
right.
care. I do. I would like to. Yeah, I would like to be trusted. Um, in order because of and sometimes I think when you're dealing with recoveries, it depends on the level of desperation they are and whether they're willing to trust you. Because a lot of recoveries are desperate. By the time
Hmm.
they get to the place where they're willing to ask for some help or want some help, there's a level of desperation there. So
There
I
sure
think that
is.
they're more willing to trust you, or they want to trust you, unless you give them a reason not to.
All right. So when I was in the ethics class, I said that, and I was a little more firm, so I'm going to swear, but I said, I don't give a shit if a recovery trusts me or not. And you know why? It kind of goes to what some people said, because at this stage of my life and my recovery, I know I am trustworthy. So what they do with it is up to them, right? So I wholeheartedly would agree with Jamie. It's not my tactic to go and try to get this person to trust me, because in some way that's manipulation, isn't it? If you're going out to figure out how can I get this person to trust me, well, that makes you untrustworthy in a sense, doesn't it? But the word that Barry used that's really good is credibility. You establish, Stephanie used the word, you're honest, you tell the truth, you speak with clarity, and that develops credibility, right? So whether what the recovery does with that is up to them. It's not up to me. So I don't know that I could, and who said, Jamie, I think you said, it's lost in buckets and earned in drips. So, right, like your mother said. And I guess I don't know how to how would you earn trust like in drips, you know? How do you do that? And so that kind of goes, some of you talked about, I think it was Pete, I think it was Leslie, I think somebody else mentioned it. You talked about layers of recovery or of trust, layers of trust. Talk to me more about layers of trust. Give me an example of what you're talking about. Anybody? Nicole, what are layers of trust?
Well, we're talking about like how do you get someone to trust you? And I think it just starts with us being consistent. So if I make an appointment with you, I'm going to hold that appointment. If I say I'm going to research a resource for you and give it to you at our next appointment, I am actually going to do that. And I'm going to remember not only the things the things that we talk about, that active listening. So you're going to work on this before the next appointment, and I'm going to work on this. And I think it has to do with that follow through. And I do believe that's where trust starts, is just do what you say and say what you do, and be transparent. We don't have to, obviously, sharing our stories and art, we have to we have to share what's useful to the client, not us. And being transparent helps them. I mean, that's the magic. Our
Right.
superpower of a recovery coach is our story.
Right.
We can drop somebody's guard and wall quicker than any counselor or
Sure.
administrator, right? Like that's our secret
So
power, and that helps them
you're
trust us.
you're emphasizing your role as saying that I am trustworthy. When I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. I didn't hear anything about where's the layer. What do you mean by layer?
Well, I
Layers
think
of
that's the
trust.
first layer. The do
What's
what
the
I
first
say, say
layer?
what I do.
So here's what I want you guys to convince me otherwise of. In any given situation, you either trust me or you don't. in any given moment. There is no layer. There's no percentage of like, I 80% trust you. I don't know what that means. Either I
Well,
do or I don't.
well,
Just
what I
'cause-
mean is I trust, do you trust me to get this resource for you? Yes. Do you trust me 100% wholeheartedly? That's tough for anybody, regardless of their the amount of time they've been in recovery. So I guess that's
so,
what I mean by layers.
so if there's doubt, there can't be trust. I'm just, I'm poking
I
the
don't
bear.
know. I don't know if it's doubt as much as um they're just not sure. There's a difference between like, I absolutely don't think you're going to do this, or I'm just not sure yet.
So give if I'll ask you, give me an example where you have a layer of trust with somebody, layers of trust with somebody. What's that look like for you?
Well, somebody's being consistent and they're calling me when they say they are. They show up on when they say they are. They're starting to do those things, and then they say, "I'm going to trust, and be. I'm going to be confidential with your story." And it's like, whoa, that's a different kind of trust. I trust you that you're not going to, um, put this in my face, and that you're going to be understanding and empathetic like that. I have not been used to in my life. So I'm a little weary and a little reluctant. Not so much like I don't believe that you're capable. I'm just reluctant.
Okay, let's explore it further. Pete.
Yeah, now that you are kind of digging into it, Phil, let's see if I can explain it from my
Yeah.
perspective about layers, because that resonated with me. So I'm with Nicole. Like, so we have this family friend. He's a great guy. He always expresses his love to us. Um, as a person of integrity, I trust that in him, as far as that he'll do what he says and he'll say what he does. Now, with that said, I don't always trust his sense of direction. I've been around him long enough. I've been with him on enough where I'm like, where because I have a great sense of direction. And I'm like, where are we going and why are we going this way? Right. So in that sense, I don't trust him. And that's how I kind of see a layer. Like you know, there's just some things that some people they're good at, and there's some things that you just know they're not. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna trust me now instead of that person. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
No, it's helpful, but I would say that the trust is not layered. It's more like partitioned, if that's even a word. Like you trust him with your emotion, but when it comes to a sense of direction, you don't trust him at all.
Yeah,
So
that's
it's either like a yes or a no. It's 100 and a zero.
well, see, I don't know. It sounds like you're trying to make trust like it's an absolute, and I don't think it is.
Well,
I don't know if that's where you're trying to
my
get at.
and I think I am trying to make trust an absolute. So that's a good way to put it. So let's talk
Yeah.
more about that. Leslie.
Okay, so one of the things that I've got going for me as a recovery coach, and I think it's very helpful. I am an empath, which means
Mhm.
very often I can feel other people's emotions and pain. And when I actually say out loud that I understand where you're coming from as they're speaking to me, sometimes I'm very emotional. I'm very close to tears myself because I'm remembering my own story. I don't have to tell them about it. I am remembering it. And when they look into my eyes, and eye contact is everything, they know that I know. And
Mhm.
there is something to that. And also, the other side of it is I have gone there with them sometimes. I have told them things about me that only somebody who I trust, I would reveal that to them. And now
Correct.
they know, oh, Leslie went there with me. My goodness, maybe I can trust her with one fact about myself.
Okay. So I heard intuition, I heard empath, and by the way, I think empaths make fantastic coaches, especially emotional empaths, but it's also your greatest gift and your greatest curse as well. So, because what you do with all that emotion, it takes a lot of skill and talent to know that. But I heard more about in any given situation again, you use your intuition to say, I trust myself, I'm going to say this, or you say, I'm not going to say this right now, and that's anyway. Well said. Thank you, Leslie. Katrina.
So, Phil, I'm kind of with you on that. I'm not really getting behind the layers of trust. What I do, like, as we're sitting here thinking, it dawned on me, like, but I think there might be like stages of trust, like stages
Here we
of
go.
recovery. There
Stages
might
of
be
trust.
stages of trust because I think
Maybe.
about like how healed am I and how healed is the person that I'm working with, right? So with my mother, I have this deep trust with her. I know that woman has walked with me through all things. She doesn't turn her back. She continues to cheer me on. So I have this deep trust. So I've went through those stages of trust with her. In the beginning, when I was 16, I wasn't going to tell her anything, nothing at all, because I knew that what I was doing wasn't trustworthy. And so I think the more that I have healed my relationships in trust, because to be completely honest with you, when you talk about like those five, like emotional and physical, I
Yep.
was thinking that I have this physical trust with my husband, but I'm not in that deep trust emotionally with him. Because sometimes I'm like, if I share this with him, he's gonna be mad.
Mhm.
Right? So I don't really have that. And I hope that throughout our marriage, we'll get to that stage where it's like this deep, intimate trust. But I think it might be stages. That might be your next thing to get on, Phil, the stages of trust.
I think that's your thing. It's not my thing. There's only one,
Oh,
there's only one stage of trust. Either you do or you don't.
you don't.
Anyway, Barry.
So my question is, why do you think there's a need for, being that there is a need for trust? That means, well, I think it's layers, and I kind of agree because usually when someone has to trust you, they're waiting on you not to come through. Like if they trust you, they waiting for, especially when you're dealing with recovery. So they've heard like they've been lied to, they've lied. So they're examining everything you do and say, and they start to trust you in layers, and they're still looking for you not to do what you say you're gonna
Oh,
do.
all right. I get what you're saying. I get what the Katrina's saying now. So maybe what you're talking about is almost like steps. Like, if I trust you with this, then I'm going to trust you with something more important. Then I'm going to trust you with something more important to me. But you kind of like have to earn it, maybe.
Right.
But again, in each instance, I'm going to choose to trust you with this component. And if it works out, then I might add another. It's almost like that thing of like building trust, right? Step. I'll have to
So
think.
what happens
This
when
is
it
why I
don't?
bring
What
this
happens
up.
when it don't work out? What happens
Hmm?
when it don't work out?
Say it again.
What happens when it don't work out?
I don't trust you anymore.
Basic layers.
No, I just say I drop back to zero. Nil. I trusted you were going to bring me back a nice chicken sandwich and you brought me back a BLT. My trust is zero when it comes to asking to get food. Jay, good to hear from you. What's up?
Hey, Phil, how are you?
Good.
Good, good. Just a quick FYI for Phil. We are at mile marker 1510 on the AT, and we got folks, they're going north and south today, Phil, and it's hot out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know.
I gave it an attempt earlier this year, but my heart was
No,
palpitating
no, no,
and
no,
all
no,
that.
no, no.
But maybe
You did it
next
once,
year.
maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
But I was I was really touched by the story about your mother.
Yeah.
And where I'm going with this is clearly you displayed something, some behaviors over the years from when she didn't trust you till the end when she said what she said.
Hmm.
And I think all of this discussion for me has been really, really great today. Long-term sobriety, 43 years, um, just retired. Thank you. Just retired, brand new to the recovery coaching piece. It's been a summer of CCAR,
Hmm.
and it's been a lot of fun, and really, really eye-opening. And then but the fact that a gal got on here earlier and um, talked about a food issue.
Hmm.
y- there's trust. There's trust in the Hollywood squares that we're sitting in front of today. Um,
Hmm.
I don't layers, no layers. All of this for me has taken time, and I was not trustworthy, and now I am. And I've worked with a lot of guys over the years, and they keep coming back, which tells me something is working. I'm not a big label guy, but being, to thine own self be true. You know, I love everything I've heard here today. And it makes me know that I'm really sitting in the right spot here this morning. Um, so thanks for leading us as always.
No, you're welcome.
Really, really good stuff.
Yeah. I'm still thinking about layers of trust. Anybody else got stuff that they want to talk to about that? I still think, uh, oh, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, it's trust is something that ebbs and flows. Goes back to it's, lost in buckets and gained in drips, right? So it's such an interesting concept. I do think there's steps, layers, whatever you want to call it, grades of trust, and it can, even with close friendships or, family members and things like that, it can ebb and flow. For example, I trust my wife with my life, but I don't trust her to be on time. So, it's so there's different. I do think that there's different layers of it. But it's it's not really that definable. So it goes back, do I use, it was intriguing the question you asked about using it as a tactic. I never had that never crossed my mind before
Hmm.
to, go in and say, okay, I've got to, my goal here is to build trust.
Right.
But instead it comes through action. Like just to wrap it up, and what a lot of people said is action speaks a lot about building trust. You can say all the words you want, but if you're not showing up, you're not being consistent, reliable, can be lost real quickly.
Well, I've heard many other trainings and coaches that I've trained talk about building trust. And I think I think the only way to, and you just mentioned it, Steve, the only way to truly build trust is to be trustworthy, and it happens naturally. And I think we always have to work on being trustworthy. Stephanie.
I don't know really what I want to say. I guess I'm thinking of what Katrina had said, what Steve just said, and then if I'm going like how I was in my, I'm in recovery. And so how I was before is I had an agenda in my addict life and I would lie to get what I wanted. Today, I don't do that. And so I'm trustworthy. And I think somebody else said it earlier. So if I'm showing up as my true authentic self, which I've done a lot of work on myself over the years. And so those people that enter my life, I feel whoever comes into my life they will want to be around me and they will learn to trust me. I don't have to put on a mask anymore. And if they decide not to be around me and they don't want to be around me or to get my suggestions or to hear what I want to say, then that's fine. They will go. I don't have to pretend to be somebody I'm not. So I don't know. I can just be who I am and help them if they want that help or coach them. So I don't know if that any of that made sense, but I just am going off of what I've heard. And I don't know. I feel that that's just me being trustworthy and I can be genuine.
Yeah, I think being genuine is key, being authentic, being genuine is a key component of being trustworthy.
Yeah.
I think people that have worked with me over the years, and I think my recovery is the real reason for this. I'm the same at work as I am at home, as I am, walking through the grocery store. I try to just be who I am, and that's all that we can be. And yeah, Michael.
Mhm.
So I started with CCAR in 2017, started working as a recovery coach in the emergency department. I remember
Mhm.
sitting with you in your office and you telling me that you believed in me and you trusted me. And that meant a lot. That empowered me, right? To be like, man, this dude don't really know me like that. He's trusting me with keys to this program, right? And I remember having it was like a forum that we were in, and somebody saying to us, everybody's looking at you guys. They're waiting for you to fail. And I was like, what? They don't trust us after this dude just told us? And I remember saying, and I remember you having a staff meeting one time and you bringing up the acronym for right, with respect, integrity, gratitude, honesty, and transparency.
Mhm.
And me saying, man, that's a good guideline to go with, right? Because as long as I do that, as long as I do everything right, who can't trust me,
Mhm.
right? As long, and you were having a conversation. I was saying that I have conversations with people and people tell me things that I'll be like, man, why you just tell me that? Like they trust in me, right, to tell me these things, and I always wonder, like, well, I must be a trustworthy person for them to like tell me that, right, something personal like that, and must be doing something right. So I'm gonna continue to do these things, right, that with respect, integrity, gratitude, honesty, and transparency. And I think if we keep that in mind, who's not gonna trust us?
Oh, I agree. Um, um, I think when you're talking too about how we conduct ourselves, right? That is truly where trust is earned, and people watch us all the time. And I kind of going back, like thinking of layers and stages um, and what Stephanie was talking about. I agree. I got out of the my addiction to cocaine just because one of the reasons is I couldn't remember who I lied to and what I said to them, and it was getting too emotionally, mentally beyond my capability to figure out what I said to who. And so when we got into recovery, it became like, this is so much easier, but um, a- am I more, I guess the question is, can you be more trustworthy, more or less trustworthy? Because I was going to say, in the first 5 years of my recovery, I still wasn't really trustworthy. That's how I would identify myself. But the last 20, 30, 20, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I've considered myself trustworthy since then. Um, and I don't really care if you trust me or yeah, layers maybe. But if you trust me or not, isn't really that concerning to me. So if I was going to tell Michael something personal, like he said, and he shared it with someone, I'm not. I don't know how that's going to hurt me because I told him the truth. I told him I'd tell him anything. And if other people know, I'm to the point where I don't give a shit about that either. What is it like I mean, what are you going to do to hold, what are you going to hold against
Uh,
me? I mean, what? I mean, so what? There's that like, what was the show we were just watching? Oh. Oh, it was some movie where the guy took like internet information, right, and blackmailed people to do stupid stuff like illegal stuff. Like he went in and looked at their search histories or found up stuff, and if you don't do this for me, I'm going to tell what and what, such and such. And he got inside the police force, and this guy, right before he killed himself, he said, "Well, you know what's really funny? It wasn't that bad after all." And what we make out, when we become so important that we think that what somebody's going to say about us, hurt is going to be the end of the world, then we're far too important, because so that's why I say what you see is what you get. And that really adds to credibility and trustworthiness to the person as an individual. You're only as sick as your secrets, right? And and Don Coy has said something. I was just thinking about it. He said it often. Don Coyus is the founder of whitebison.org, Native America Pathway to Recovery. And he says the spiritual nature of a secret is to make itself known. And I just went, whoa. The spiritual nature of a secret is to make itself known. And I was like, oh, it doesn't, if that's a spiritual nature of a secret, which I tend to agree, otherwise it wouldn't be called a secret, is to make itself known, then I don't have any secrets. Ask me anything, I'll tell you. Or, yeah, I'm just that way. Any thoughts about what I just on my little ramble? Come on, we got to fill up a few more minutes because we got to do 90 minutes. So come on, somebody else fill up some stuff with some silly story or something. Oh, Leslie asked me for well, she put her phone number. You guys can take my personal email too, and that's my cell phone too. I put it in the chat. That's a welcome to all of you.
Phil, I just want to say thank you
Oh,
for that. I just want to say thank you for that. I appreciate that. So what it does for me is it gives me hope in my journey of recovery, because you continuously share your growth and your journey, which makes me desire to want to be there. I did have a sponsor one time that told me, and excuse my language, she said, "I can't wait till you get in your 40s because that'll be your don't give a shit era." And I was like so grateful for that. And I just turned 40 this year.
all right.
So I feel like I'm like rolling into that. But it's also what, almost 13 years, right?
Yeah.
Of this journey of like learning about myself, learning trust, earning trust. And so I just appreciate what you share.
How
Thank
old
you.
were you when you got into recovery?
27.
Yeah, well, I was 28,
Hot
so
mess.
yeah, me too.
Yeah, and like you said, that first 5 years, forget about it.
Well, you got to go through it. The only way, the only way through hell is to continue to keep going.
Yep.
Regan.
Hi, yeah, I just have a question for you, Phil. In that example you gave where, you tell someone some information about you and then they go and tell someone else and you wouldn't really be bothered by your information being out there because you uh, believe wholeheartedly in who you are. But would it impact you trusting that person?
Um, it depends on what it was. So I would say I trust people till they give me a reason not to. So they gave me a reason not to, so I probably wouldn't say that again, depending on what it was, you know. But my
Yeah,
first,
makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah, well, it depends. It's all. like circumstantial. What were the circumstances? What happened? What was it like? And oh yeah, there's been countless times in my life where it said, I'm not going to do that again. Or with that person, yeah, of course. Leslie.
Yeah, I just want to say, your story, the Appalachian Trail story, and the idea of being on a road and a journey and it
Hmm.
starting at sobriety. I'm just going to say it, there's so many similarities to my own journey. I am going to do the Appalachian Trail also, but not right away.
Nice.
But the idea, I I went into recovery 4.5 years ago, and simultaneously, almost immediately, I started to find out things about myself. And so I went into transition. I'm a transgender woman in upstate New York.
Hmm.
And that simultaneous thing made it almost impossible. At the same time, it was absolutely necessary. But I will say, facing into some of the stuff that I've faced, face everything and recover. It's been really, really hard. And I turn towards journeys like yours and I think, I can do this. I can do this. I just have to continue. So I needed to say that out loud. And I wanted to say thank you for this opportunity so much.
Thank you, Leslie. And I want to say 4 words to you. I believe in you. You can do this. Continue. Uh, Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Phil, for this. Listening to you, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to keep my mind open to what Phil is saying because, right now in this moment, I may not completely agree with everything, but I know I'm listening to someone with experience and holding a place for those of us that maybe haven't quite figured it out yet.
Hmm.
And I'll leave you with this analogy because I used to train a lot in this martial art Aikido, right? And I
Yeah.
trained with this master. He had 50 years, and he did this move with his wrist. He said, "Just do this," right? And to me, it just looked like this, right? Later on, I was to find out there was energy, there was skeletal positioning, there was a control of his muscles that I didn't have control of over 50 years of training. So, just doing this to him meant a whole lot different thing to him than it did to me. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching this, that you've given me something to strive towards and to think about and to kind of maybe potentially incorporate into my own life. So I appreciate that.
Here's a whole another. I don't give a shit if everybody agrees with me or not. I got to that point too, the 60s, where you really don't give a shit, Katrina. Never mind the 40s. Talk about the 60s, you really don't give a shit. Very.
So, question for you: do you think when trust is lost, can it be regained?
Yes, of course. And one of the ones that was a prime example was my son Matthew when he was smoking marijuana that time in his room, and that went. I asked him if he wanted to continue to live with us, and he since said, Dad, when you said that, I was considering leaving and just going to live with a friend. I said, I know, but that was real for me. And he's in recovery now. And he lost our trust to not bring drugs into the house, do what was right, all that. But he gained it back quickly. I kind of think of what you were talking about, Jamie. With my son, he gained it back in buckets too. He didn't gain it back in drops. He gained it back in buckets. Stephanie.
I just want to personally say thank you so much, Phil,
Mhm.
and
Sure.
your mentorship. And I learned so much. And I need to get in, Michael. Thank you for your leadership as well and your mentorship. And I learned so much. And I get your emails. I'm not able to always come to the RCPF trainings and whatnot, but I just love this forum and what you do for CCAR and all the recovery coaches and our learning and whatnot. And I personally gained so much. So just a personal thank you. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Stephanie. Continue doing what you're doing. I believe in you. And a lot of these, I think we record those, and CCAR was gracious enough to keep me going to do these once a month or so. So there's a whole archive up on the website, ccar.us, of all of these coaching for coaches sessions. And Michael gets them, records them. And do you put them up there, or who's putting them up there? Is it Sedona's?
Travis is the one that puts them up.
Yeah, so I don't know how many are up there now, but there's that kind of stuff, the videos, there's YouTube stuff, there's TikTok stuff, podcasts, Recovery Matters podcast. So we're trying to just put a face on recovery, keep the message of recovery out there. I still believe that there's a huge wave of recovery coaching that's going to transform our country and not the world. So you guys are on the surfboards riding that wave. So I would say continue. And it's 11:30. Thank you guys. This was fun. I enjoyed it and you helped me out. And I don't know, oh, Michael and I, did we come up with a topic for next time?
No.
I thought we were gonna do something with the quadrants, or maybe
Oh
we'll
yeah,
see.
with the something with the quadrants. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. Quadrants, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical.
Yep.
Next month. All right, guys, take care. Peace.